Rondo, as you can see by the title, is based on a wonderful short text by Hungarian writer István Örkény. I took the story that he wrote and I transformed it into this artist book where I reinterpreted his sound poem about a woman who spends her life typing in an office, a cog in the larger world of of her world, I guess. And I'll show you what I did with it. She pulls a slip of paper from the carriage of her typewriter, and she pulls it, and she pulls it, and she pulls it, and she types, and she types, and she types. It became a sound poem in his text, so I decided to maximize that and made the paper have sound. And she takes a new slip of paper, and she types, and she types, and she types. Her name was Mrs. Wolf, and she types, and she types, and she types, and she slides a sheet of carbon paper between them, and she types, and she types, and she types. This unusual sequence of pages is based on the fact that a rondo, which is a Baroque music form, does not go A, B, C, D in a linear sequence, but a non-linear sequence. So I decided to use that format. Because she took a piece of carbon paper, I made a piece of blue paper. And in here is a sound performance by a Hungarian percussionist, András Dés, performing on my paper his interpretation of Mrs. Wolf's dream. The book continues, though. This section of the book can be read in either direction. Her name is Mrs. Wolf, her name, remember the name, remember the name. Her name is Mrs. Wolf, Mrs. Wolf, Mrs. Wolf, Mrs. Wolf. And the essence of the story is condensed into just one single page. She's been working in the same office for 25 years. She eats a cold sandwich for lunch. She lives alone. Remember the name, Mrs. Wolf, Mrs. Wolf, Mrs. Wolf. She eats a cold sandwich for lunch. She lives alone. Remember the name, remember the name, remember the name, remember the name. And because a rondo, which means round in Italian, is a never-ending story, I wanted this to not end. So I typed with a manual typewriter the text repeatedly with all the mistakes one would make on a typewriter. And then it begins again because it's a never-ending thing. She slips a piece of paper from the carriage of her typewriter. It's important to know that because this was a Hungarian text, it had different references than the Americans would understand. It refers to being a cog in the communist system, which I decided not to focus on, but I took a more feminist position of being a woman who does those the necessary things, washes our toilets, cleans our house, and we never give credit.